Okay.
Hello, amigas, and welcome to Amiga Handle Your Shit podcast. I have some exciting news here. I have a beautiful soul. She's got such a beautiful spirit, and I knew that I needed to have her here on this podcast because what she does is so transformative for our educational system. And we all know that many Latinos out there don't go that path. And here we have someone who actually went all the way with a PhD. So her name is Janet Mercado, Dr. Mercado. Welcome to Amiga Handle Your Shit podcast.
Thank you for having me, Jackie. I'm so excited to be here and share my experience, and I hope, someone takes something out of it, and I'm happy to be here with you.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. Well, let's get started. So, I know you, but no one out there that,
right.
Well, maybe some do know you already, based on your husband and the company. The business that my brothers are in with your husband. But
right.
Let's get to know you. Like, where are you from? Are you Latina? Obviously, your last name is so surname is Latino, but were you born here in the United States? Really, what's your familial background?
Yeah, I was born here in I was born in Boyle Heights, and I grew up in East Los Angeles. And I grew up with both parents, a mom that was from Puerto Rico, and a father that was from Mexico. Both of my parents met in Boyle Heights, and luckily, they got to raise, myself and my siblings. And I got to go to school in like East Los Angeles, and I think in a community that's mostly Latino. I definitely mostly spoke Spanish most of my childhood into now my career. A lot of we'll get into, but my research focuses on the Spanish language and how it's used. So yeah, I'm definitely in a community that's Latino. I am a Latina, and so that has obviously impacted the research that I do, the choices that I've made to pursue a PhD and do this type of work. So as an undergrad, I just went to a local university. I went to Cal State Los Angeles. And, I kind of just went there because it was kind of like the closest school. At that point, I didn't know anyone that had gone to a college. I think my sister-in-law had gone there, and that was the only person that I knew at that point that had gone to a university. I have, my dad went maybe up until like 4 years of schooling, and my mom did complete high school. So, just kind of figuring out what do I like to do. I went in actually with a biochemistry major, and then I took a course in psychology and just found the human mind to be so interesting. So I ended up, just following that route, changing majors. I became part of a lab, a research lab at school that focused on more like stressors and trauma. And, that really got me interested in research, and, always had, this like interest in having these questions and finding ways to answer those questions. So that kind of got my mind focused into, studying something. I just, couldn't exactly pinpoint it at that point as an undergrad. So at the same time that I was working as an undergraduate research assistant for this lab, I was also tutoring throughout East Los Angeles and throughout Southeast LA. And a lot of the students that I worked with were, in high school, but they seem to have not be where they should be, for their grade level, not having that really strong foundational knowledge in, mathematics, even in language arts. So, that kind of incited, well, what's going on? Why are all these students behind? And, through that kind of incited this, interest in educational research. And that initially kind of led me to pursue, a PhD in education, and influenced my research and incited me to continue on to finish my degree. And then, it still is part of me as I continue this, research in education and language development.
Wow. Oh my goodness. Okay. There's a lot that you said there that I love
Right.
to unpack.
Sure.
And here's the thing, you went to Cal State LA and you switched majors, obviously, and then you found out that that there was this need, like there was this deficiency. Let's talk about that. What was it that you found that really excited you and said, wait a minute, I need to really dig really deep there?
Right. So I'd work with a lot of high school students, and I'd either go to their homes or I'd go into the library and meet them there. And a lot of them, I think initially felt either a little intimidated just because I was just an adult, I think, that was going to work with them. Or they felt uneasy. And I think as I kind of discovered that they were just really behind, and and I'm seeing to the point where a lot of these high school students didn't know their basic multiplications or fractions, and that just put this concern, like what's going on, like if they don't know this, how are they going to get to college, how are they going to do on their SATs? And unfortunately, mathematics is so important that it just influences all these other, it influences all these science careers, all these technology careers. And I just, how are these students going to get there? What's going to happen to these students if at this point they're not, learning this? So it just, started that concern. And I just, initially when I would sit with them, I would kind of just try to get to know them. I was always very friendly, and I would try to, I think, teach it to them in a way that it was even for me to kind of go back and remember all of this like older mathematics and why these rules make sense. And I think it's difficult because, one, I think with mathematics, we're kind of made to just memorize rules and not really know why we're using them. And if you don't get it, you're kind of like just left behind. The curriculum keeps moving really quickly, and if you don't gather this basic skill early on, you're just going to continue to be left behind over the years. And so that was again my main concern. Some of these students too, I would talk to them like at a personal level. I would spend I don't know, so many hours with each one. And some of them, would tell me, oh, well, my teacher doesn't care about me, and or my parents can't help me with my homework. That's why we have you as a tutor. And and it's sad. And I felt like some of these students started a little, like I say, shy or unconfident. And then over time, I would just kind of give them attention and focus on what I thought that they needed. And I saw a lot of them really develop their understanding and feel confident. Like I remember this one student, he was like a young male, and I thought, oh, he's going to be a little bit of trouble. But over time, I found ways to relate to him. And I remember starting with him with like really basic fractions, and then it leading to me using my college algebra book to teach him. And I didn't tell him that until I felt that he mastered, a lot of these problems. And I told him that. He's like, really? And then so, I tutored him, and he was so confident. He started whistling as he was doing a lot of the math work. So that also brought the idea of how important not just setting that foundational knowledge is, but how important it is to really like honor who these people are as individuals, and give them this attention that they need. So yeah, that definitely sparked the direction of my research.
Right. It seems to me like the fact that you were giving them the attention they needed was the impetus for them to not only catch up and probably be at par in their scholastic in their scholastic year. I think that is a huge part of why kids don't really want to learn. They
Right.
don't have that extra attention. If their parents are out working,
Mhm.
obviously who's going to take care of them? Some of them don't even have nannies to take care of them, so they're like pretty
Right.
much on their own accord, right?
Mhm.
So I feel like, that is a huge issue. And if we would be able to remove that component, I'm sure, I mean, our Latino kids would be really
Right.
advanced, right? So, okay, well, we have what we have, right? We have what we have, but you have been in this trajectory of creating change through these research endeavors that you've made. And right now, you are working at UC Irvine, right?
Yes. Mhm.
And so please tell us, what are your studies there? What are you researching? How is this impacting that fellow high school student that you are teaching, someone like that?
Right. So this study that I work for is a little different because this one actually focuses on language. And the underlying issue that kind of, is part of this goal of mine is that it serves a community that is, that needs a little bit more help, is, lower socioeconomic status, definitely Latino students. And so this is important for so many reasons. I just wanted to make a little connection to why I went from like math research to now,
Please
literacy.
do.
It's definitely focused on that community. Um, Before I get into, the specifics of the study, I do want to say that I part of the big reason why I love this study is that one, we're working with elementary school students at a really young age. Um, and it's not necessarily me working with them. I have a group of like, anywhere from 10 to 25 undergraduate students that work with them who are bilingual. So our study is a bilingual study. And I really love that these elementary students, one, get to work with college students early on and see, wow, like this person is in a university. This is a university student. That's awesome. But also that they're Latinos and that they're speaking Spanish to them. And just, like, hey, like your Spanish, your language, your background, it's really valuable and it's going to get you somewhere. And I love that connection. And it's definitely not this big part of the study. It's just something I see that I feel is very valuable, that is not going to be measured. So in terms of my actual study, what we do is I work, of course, under a primary investigator, and she comes up with all the theory behind all of this. But I definitely coordinate every aspect of this project, from recruiting our participants to creating the measures that we use, to being present and coordinating actual data collection, and analyzing some of the data, scoring the data. So I do a lot of things, and I also love that aspect of my job as well. I'm always, thinking critically, problem solving. It's no day is the same. So what we study is, it's a longitudinal study. And what we're doing is we're looking at dual language learners. A lot of them, English is actually their second language.
Mhm.
And we're following a group of students across 3 years. We're actually in the third year of the project. So starting in grade 1, we did these measures with them, and then we did it again in grade 2, and now we're doing it in grade 3. So we're looking at their cognitive skills, looking at how they comprehend stories, their abilities to make inferences, and then perspective taking. Along with that, we're also looking at their oral language skills, vocabulary, their listening comprehension skills. And we have a third part where we look at their writing skills. So all of these are, really foundational skills to have as one develops across the grades to learn how to read and write, which is obviously very important for any career, and for schooling, of course. So we're not just looking at how these develop across the ages, grades 1, 2, and 3, but we're also looking at how the skills, again, these students are tested in English and in Spanish, how these skills transfer across languages. Some kids are taking in information in one language. They might even be answering us in the opposite language. So their brains are making all these, connections, and the goal of the study is to really show how valuable it is to be bilingual, how important it is to have these skills. In other countries, if you go to Europe, you go to, certain Asian countries, they know multiple languages. And in the US, for a long time, having a second language was not seen as something beneficial, but it is beneficial. And so this study is really trying to bring in all this empirical evidence to show that, hey, being bilingual is an asset, and you should be very proud and really, develop these skills with our students and encourage them to use both languages.
Oh my God, amazing. You know what? You're saying that being bilingual is an asset. It's not a drawback. And I remember, this was back when I was I was a second year in law school, I think. So that would take me to the year 98, I think, 97, 98. And there was this body of a proposition that actually California had. And
Right.
I'm trying to remember, was it
Gray
227?
Davis?
Yes, during that time, and where they completely eradicated the program.
Right.
So now coming full circle, 20 plus years later, figuring out that what they did was, I'm going to just cuss right now and say fucked up.
Yes, absolutely.
Because it should not have stopped. Because back then we had bilingual education. Now, I'm sure now that you're doing the study, now you have the backing to support bilingual education, right?
Right.
Wow, I'm excited for this. So now, okay, so your goal right now it's first, second, and third grade.
Right.
And do you think that they will inculcate, if your findings are fully correct, as I would gather that it is, do you believe that the state of California will implement language aside from English language in their curriculum?
I would hope so. And from what I see across just different districts, it looks like a lot of schools are implementing more dual language programs, be it, Spanish or Mandarin or another language, Korean. So I think more people are, taking up, as you say, that idea that, hey, it was fucked up. They took that away. And, these students can learn absolutely in another language. We all take in information. That's how we make sense of the world. It doesn't matter what language that sense is being made out of. So I think that this type of work, it gets published in like academic, journals and like psychology education journals. And I think that's where it gets a little difficult in a lot of these research projects. They just get published and maybe they're cited, with these policymakers. And usually my understanding is that a lot of these policymakers have never actually been in schools, aren't researchers, and they're kind of making the rules for education.
That's the problem. It's like we elect these representatives, but yet they have zero idea of what really goes on the ground, if you will, right? Like they don't take the time to go visit the schools, visit the children, visit the teachers, make sure that everything is aligned, because obviously not everything is aligned, because our schools should be doing better.
Absolutely.
Right? In comparison to the rest of the world.
Absolutely, yes. And I think that a lot of policymakers, come up with these, implementations and rules, and like, here you go, districts, you guys work on it. And then districts, here, teachers, you work on that. And then the teachers are so overwhelmed. They're like, hey, student, here's this information. And no one's really, I think, reflective of what's going on. And I don't think that the consequences are really looked at for like decades sometimes. as we're seeing with this language.
Well, check out what would happen with the
Mhm.
state of California back, like I said, I'm telling you, it was either 97, 98 when that happened.
Right.
Not until now are we really focusing on bilingual,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's very unfortunate. And I'm a very conspiracy theorist. I think that was on purpose, to be quite honest. But you know,
Right.
whatever. We can
Right.
table that discussion over wine or a beer.
Right. I love that. Yeah. I wonder why beer.
I wonder why beer, right?
Yeah.
But okay, so where you're doing this data, you're in the third year, going into the third year, and now what do you want from this? What is your ultimate goal?
Well, I think that one of the first things that we do with the data is to share it with the districts. And this isn't one of these, published long, 30-page papers. This is just an executive summary that we give to them every year. We give them a list of like the schools and teachers that participated. And hey, this is where your students fall. And this is where your students fall on an average scale. So that kind of gives them a different understanding to where they are. Of course, all these districts use standardized testing. That only gives you so much information, right? With this study, we do have a lot of responses that are like these justification questions. So students are actually verbally responding to us, and we're able to kind of come up with all these nuanced, responses and give them scores, and it gives them, more information about their students. And something that we've talked about, it didn't happen last year because of COVID, but I think at the end of this year is that we would like to present this to the parents. I don't know if this is surprising to you or not, it was to me, but a lot of the parents in this particular community don't want their students, or maybe don't always encourage their kids to speak Spanish, even though they themselves only speak Spanish. And it's because it's been reinforced to them that it's this deficit, and they want them to speak, English more. And I think that, showing them like, hey, like these skills are really important. Like keep pushing your kid to speak Spanish. I think it's going to be something really valuable just for the parents to hear. I've had to contact some parents over the years, especially last year, it was a remote year. I had to collect data through Zoom. I had all my research assistants on Zoom. I turned all my assessments into these like online format assessments, and we had to coordinate with teachers. We had to coordinate with parents sometimes. And I talked to them on the phone, and they're like, oh, it's so wonderful. Mi hija ya no quiere hablar, no me habla en español. Like, yo le hablo y luego no me contesta o me contesta en inglés. My daughter doesn't respond to me in Spanish. She just responds to me in English. And it's difficult. And, sometimes you just kind of feel defeated just because I think English is so universal that you might think that it's just better to only focus all your skills on English. But you're missing out on all this like critical thinking and putting these two languages together and all that stuff, like transferring in your head. And the more you struggle through it, sure, but the more you struggle, like the more something's gonna stick.
Yeah. Well, it's always the devils are in the details of everything, right? And the way you thrive is in the uncertainty.
Right.
You can't, if you're certain about certain things, right? That's a double entendre. Okay, cool. That's important. But, where's the opportunity to grow if it's not when you don't know? Right. So, oh my God, I love this conversation. Education, obviously, having gone through law school, been a lawyer now for 20 plus years. Oh my God, I don't want to date myself, but
it's all experience.
And then here's the thing, as a lawyer, I'll tell you this much. I mean, yes, critical thinking, number one, you have to have that. You can't, I had a really challenging time in law school because I have a learning disability. But it was very, no one knew. I did not know. And then it was discovered that I had multiple sclerosis, which now makes sense that I do have a learning disability. And, but I struggled. And had I known this information, I'm sure my life would have been different. But, you know, this is what God called and this is what it is. But for amigas out there in the educational system or wanting to pursue higher degrees like me, like, you know, si quieres, puedes. Like, it's
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
important to know that, because just because you may not be good or strong in one area doesn't mean, you know, you should be defeated.
Right.
And it's an opportunity to grow and learn, because,
Absolutely.
you know, your studies are proving that if you nurture it and work with it, it's a plus, it's not a negative.
Right.
when
Absolutely.
when things are not working out, it's like you got to do it and not
Yeah.
be scared,
Mm-hmm.
right?
I
I mean,
agree.
not be scared. And so I'm excited for the work that you're doing, and that it's going to be taken to the parents, which is very important, because obviously,
Yeah.
like, you're a parent, I'm a parent, and
Yeah.
many parents aren't physically there with their children, but maybe if they see this study in their hands and they read up on it, maybe they have a change of heart to be there for their kids at home, or figure something out, like get a
Right.
tutor or something like that. Or maybe the state of California can actually put on a budget to have people have tutors to tutor their
Exactly.
kids,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Just like how you tutored those kids
Mm-hmm.
that were in high school.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I don't want to take out too much of your time, but this
No,
is
no.
wonderful. This is wonderful. I'm very, very excited for this, Dr. Mercado.
Gracias.
Very excited. So now, as we're coming to the end of our conversation, I always ask my guests if they could provide 1 or 2 tips on how an amiga can handle her shit, because I know you have done it. Now you are a doctor. And this is important, amigas, because this is coming from a doctor, okay? Listen up.
Okay. Well, for one, you know, becoming getting my PhD was not easy. There were many moments where I didn't feel sure of myself. You know, as I said, I went in with a degree from Cal State LA. I went in with a bachelor's degree into my PhD program. And, you know, I went in very excited, like, wow, I'm in a PhD program. But I think initially I kind of like felt a little like scared or unsure of myself after that, when I, you know, learned, oh, your cohort, you know, so and so went to Harvard, so and so went here. And I think I started doubting myself. But, you know, something, you know, and I want to say that as part of my tip. You know, there's this saying that, you know, comparison is the thief of joy. And I think, you know, going in all excited to do this, and then, you know, starting to see my cohort, and that took away that joy. But I didn't let that, you know, get in my way. I made sure to tell myself, like, no, Janet, you bring something really important. Like, I don't know what it is, but you bring something important. You have the skills, you made it in here, so just do the work. And that's what I did. And that's, you know, my tip is, you know, don't get your mind, you know, into this comparison thing, because it could be one, a waste of time, because you're just thinking kind of negative about yourself instead of actually doing something. So, you know, instead of maybe thinking of, oh, how do I compare to them? How do I make myself, you know, a better Janet? Like, what can I do, Janet, just to meet my goals? What can I do to, you know, get my PhD and do my projects? And it was just a matter of me, like, okay, Janet, just get through the week. Okay, Janet, just get through the month, just get through the quarter. And, you know, just keeping that in mind, like, no one can ever take away the work that you put in. And I think I just kept putting that on myself, you know, making myself accountable, not only to myself, but I would, you know, set up meetings with people, especially when it came down to writing my dissertation, because you're completely on your own when you're doing that. It's completely on your time. So, you know, I would make obviously weekly meetings with my advisor. I would make meetings even with the writing center just to have someone to look at my writing to make sure that it's clear. But also you had to actually take something to the writing center. So that made me actually sit down and write my dissertation and be able to get that out like on time. And I think I just, try to stay positive about it. I think the dissertation, they kind of refer to it as like this, like, I don't know, like a marathon. A marathon isn't fun, like maybe if you're a runner, but I'm not. So, I kind of started looking at it like it's my garden, like the seeds of my questions, my thoughts for my seeds, for my questions. And I developed it with all these skills. And, over the years, I had to, tend to my dissertation and edit it and take care of it. And I saw it as something to work towards. It was never going to be perfect. It's published and I'm sure if you look at it, you'll find typos, but it's done. It's officially done. And I completed my program, and, now I'm in this other, first step of my career in this world. So yeah, I think just don't compare yourself to others, compare yourself to yourself.
Yes.
How can I get better?
Yes. I think that is perfect. I think, comparison is a thief of joy. And I really love that you said that. One of the things that I've always said that I learned as well is like, don't compare my middle to your beginning.
Right.
I mean, it's just, there's no comparison, right? And so and I feel like when we compare, we start getting into the imposter syndrome, like, oh my God, who am I? I'm not, how can I? Right. And you decided to ask a better question, right? You decided to hold yourself accountable and tend to your own garden and say, how can Janet do this? And so I really, really, really applaud you for all the work that you have done. I mean, no one becomes a doctor just like that, because a dissertation, like you said, it's like a marathon.
Right.
Yeah. And some people, I mean, don't run marathons. I'll tell you that. I don't run marathons.
Likewise.
But I love what you're saying, and thank you so much for doing the great work. And I feel that many individuals out there, many amigas, have no idea that what goes on, in the background, because you're out collecting the data, compiling these studies of people. And I think that we need more people like that, more researchers, more people to go out and find out. And these Congress people, what the heck is wrong with you guys? Go and visit these schools, learn from the people themselves, not just from your what is it, your podium, preaching to everybody, right? Well, thank you so much, Dr. Mercado. And I love this conversation, and I hope to see you very soon.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you so much, Jackie. And thank you all my amigas out there too.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for being here on Amiga Handle Your Shit podcast.
Awesome. Thank you.